never going to know if your partner is capable of meeting your needs if you don't tell your partner your needs.
Right.
And I always say to people, just remember that your partner can't read your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that part.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of things that we assume maybe they know or we believe that they should know. I hear that from people. Well, he should know. Well,
right.
Just stop. Just stop with the should.
Exactly. Hello, and welcome to Situaseans podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Williams, aka seanydoo. You can call me Sean. Seanydoo, does not matter to me. I'm just glad that y'all are here. I have a special guest here. Who is this special guest? Well, my guest is Allison Jane Ewing. I am so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So excited. And you have quite the bio. Oh my goodness. I'm excited to go through this because you have done so much in your life and your career. And I know that you're going to just drop so much knowledge on our listeners this episode. So Allison, she is a seasoned psychotherapist, EFT practitioner, and best-selling author. Love that. Go all the way the fuck off. After experiencing a divorce herself, so Allison decided to focus on helping other midlife women find healthy single men who will love and adore them. I love that. Just helping people out. And she works as using a powerful tool called EFT tapping. And we're going to get into that because I'm excited.
For sure we'll get into that. Yeah.
So she uses this powerful tool called EFT tapping to, have women clear all blocks, that way they can be able to kind of have an open mind about successful dating and, to open up the excitement of falling in love again. That's just amazing. Finding so many people fall in love. Yes. And so so you recently published a book, Finding Love Again, Learn to Date Like a Goddess. Okay. And this is a guide to igniting your inner goddess and finding the man of your dreams. So ladies that are listening, I know y'all are going to love this stuff. So welcome to the show, Allison. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yes. And Harley, she's excited for you to be here too. Yeah. Those of you that are watching and those of you that are listening, Harley the Husky, the show's mascot, she just hopped up on the couch to show Allison some love here. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see via the Harley cam, Harley's over here just, She's
like, give me pats.
Exactly. She's like, I'm part of this show.
That's right.
So for those of you, I just want to say, thank you so much for tuning in. Some of you are new. Each episode, I find out that I have, some new people coming on and to the show. So just want to say first and foremost, thank you for listening. Tune into the podcast, because we're available everywhere. Please rate and review. Give a 5-star rating because that helps people find this show valuable, right? I mean, rating goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I've been listening to your show and I already forwarded some episodes to some of my single friends because I was like, they need to hear this.
Yes, love it. Mm-hmm. And also subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Situaseans podcast. And what the Patreon is, that is an exclusive private community for all the behind the scenes content, all that stuff, dating app screenshots from the stuff that I go through. And I kind of do some dating app makeovers and reveals. So all that good stuff, a lot of stuff happens on the Patreon, but it's a fun time. So today we're going to be talking about so much. I'm so excited. So, this podcast is about dating, relationships, mental and emotional life experiences. Ooh, fucking we. I swear, the amount of F-bombs I've dropped on this podcast,
I was so relieved when I heard that though, because I was like, yes, I can swear. I mean, one of the chapters is titled How Cinderella Fucked Me Up in my book. And sometimes when I do these interviews, I'm like, can I say that or can I not say that? So
yes, we encourage it. I would be offended if you did not swear.
Right, I like it.
So today we're going to be talking about, how we can, manifest love and, manifest the life that we want to live. And also we have a listener submission about being able to communicate needs and wants to your partner in intimate moments and how we can, how you can kind of pretty much have that open space and have that courage to have that conversation. So definitely excited to unpack that. And then we got a few hinged or unhinged dating app prompts that I'm excited to unpack with that. And by you being a psychotherapist, oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you to get your insight on some of the unhinged shit that people be putting on their dating app profiles.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. For sure.
So, you and I met at Podfest this year, and oh my goodness, like just sitting down with you and kind of just understanding who you are and everything that you do. I was like, wow, this person has lived a life, and I am just so excited. I was like, I need to have her on the show.
Yeah, I stalked Sean. I found him. I was like, you're a dating and relationship person. We need to talk.
Yes.
Because there's an app at Podfest that tells you who everybody is. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Shout out Podfest.
And by the way, so my boyfriend and I refer to you since Podfest as Chicago Sean. And then I was thinking, oh wait, he's moving to LA though, so we can't call him Chicago Sean anymore.
I'll be LA Sean soon.
That's right.
So whenever like I have a guest in the show, the listeners, they always want to know, well, what's like the relationship status of the guest? So you kind of just alluded to you have a boyfriend here in a relationship. Tell us all about it. Where did you all meet? By the way, I've met him, y'all. He is handsome.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I'm like, it's funny you've actually met him, so we can talk about that. Yeah. So actually, the story is pretty interesting from my point of view because the big message that I have in my book and the work I do with my clients is when you clear all the things in your heart and mind that are getting in the way of you falling in love, then love will find you.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like you can write in a gratitude journal 3 things you're grateful for every day, but if you're bitter or angry or resentful, you can write that all day long and it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
You have to clear the bitterness, anger, and resentment, and then gratitude is actually naturally what we feel. And I feel like the same with love. I mean, there's heartache, there's wounding, there's fear and betrayal and all sorts of things that get in the way of us being sort of open-hearted to love. But when you do the work and clear that, then you're just kind of loving in life and you show up loving and you have this magnetism about you that draws people in.
Yeah.
And actually, it's kind of what happened to me. So, well, as I was writing the book, which I know we're going to talk more about, but as I was writing the book, I have this wish for my reader that you don't settle. Don't just get with someone so that you're not alone. Just really work on yourself, hold your value high, and know your worth. And you can find the perfect person for you. No one's perfect, but you can find someone perfect for you.
Absolutely.
So as I'm writing this and I'm giving my reader this wish for this, amazing epic love is what I talk about in the book. I want you to have epic love. I'm realizing that I was in a relationship with a perfectly lovely man and we had a great time, but I knew it wasn't a forever situation. Mm-hmm. And as I was writing the book, I'm realizing that. And I thought, oh gosh, I probably need to get out of this relationship. So there were some serendipitous things that happened literally a few weeks after I had that thought that caused the relationship to end. And then as I was starting my book tour, people would often ask me, well, have you found love again? And I would say, no, I haven't actually, but I have complete faith that it's on its way and I'm not worried about it and all of this stuff. And I kind of got back on the dating apps and I had some not so good experiences. And then I started seeing this guy that I thought, okay, he's got a lot of the things I'm looking for, but there were some problem things. And I was like, I have to live my book and I have to set a boundary and say, no, like this is not, this is not working. The hot and cold and the, breadcrumbing and all the things I know you talk about a lot on your show, but all those things were happening. I said, no. And a week after I really drew the line in the sand and ended it with that guy, my now current boyfriend started chatting with me on Facebook because we went to high school together and it just went from there. And we just started talking more and more and more. And then we met because he lives in LA.
Yeah. All right. Yes. The best state in the entire U.S.
So I am in a long distance relationship, which does have its own complications, but it's just great. I mean, it's like it was a very small town. We grew up in Medfield, Massachusetts, and his best friend dated my best friend's sister. You know, it's like that. Like
Yeah.
we have all this common history and stuff. So that's really nice. And I say it took me about 3 months to realize it, but I realized, oh my gosh, I'm actually living what I say. I kept doing the work and I kept, sticking to the boundaries and the healthy stuff that I was trying to do for myself. And then a great person found me. And
Wow.
here I am. 10 months later, something like that.
Amazing.
Bad at math.
That's awesome that you all found your way back to each other. And that's so cool that you all know each other dating back to high school. Like you
Right.
all,
Well, we
yeah.
didn't actually know each other back then because he's 5 grades ahead of me. So it was like I was in 8th grade when he was a senior. So we didn't know each other.
Miss each other.
Just
then.
miss each other.
Yeah.
I knew his brother. His brother sat next to my sister in homeroom. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's like really
yeah, exactly.
Right. So we didn't actually know each other, but we knew of each other. And he is an actor, and he was in a play that I saw when I was in 8th grade. I mean, it's just funny. It's just funny looking back on like some of the maybe near misses.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were definitely in the same place at the same time a few times growing up.
For sure.
Yeah.
The universe definitely found a way to like align you all back into each other's
Yeah, it
lives.
does feel like that. Yeah.
For sure. Amazing. And so so you're based in Chicago right now, right? And so like how long have you been in Chicago? And then where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Massachusetts. Well, I grew up actually in New Jersey until I was 10. And then I moved to Massachusetts, and everyone always says, well, you don't have an accent from either. And I say, yeah, that's because when I moved from New Jersey to Massachusetts, everyone said, hey, new girl, come here, say daughter. And I said, daughter, what? What's the matter?
So you had a strong East Coast accent.
I did. For a minute there, I did. And I kind of got shamed out of it,
Oh, no.
Yeah. So anyway, so until 10 in New Jersey, and then until I graduated high school, until I was 18 at Massachusetts. And then I ended up going to school in the Midwest because my dad had actually moved to the Midwest when I was still in high school. Mm-hmm. And I actually lived with a family, friends, until I graduated. And then we kind of all have sort of migrated to the Midwest since then. And so I've been in Chicago since 98, I want to say. So I've actually lived here longer than I ever lived in the East Coast, which is weird because I'm old.
You're not old.
I'm a lot older than most of your guests. Let's put it that way.
And like I'm gonna need to find the fountain of youth from you because I said this to you before too. Like when we first met, I was like, wow, she doesn't look a day over like 25, 26. Like I need to find out how she looks so young so that I can look young forever.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you. I do appreciate that, and I'm not ashamed of my age, but I am 50.
What?
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
So now on interviews when I say I got divorced back in my 40s and people say what? So, I like those people.
Wow.
Yeah.
About to be 50 and still thriving. Go all the way the fuck off.
Yeah, somewhat thriving more because I feel like you get more comfortable with yourself the older you get. Mm-hmm. You do gain a lot of wisdom. You do learn from your mistakes and
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's easier to live your best life when you get older.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that even like in this, like I guess in this new era of your life since like the divorce and everything, do you feel like it's been like a better quality of life? Like you're really in your element, in your moment now?
I think so in some ways, right? I mean, obviously I did have kids. I had 2 kids with my ex-husband. And so that part is obviously hard and divorce is hard. And even though the relationship wasn't right for me, and in a lot of ways I have been happier outside of that marriage, it's also, it was hard to see my family dissolve and go through that, and for my kids and to see them sort of struggle with things of having divorced parents. So that was difficult. And then of course I was dating for much of the last 8 years, and it's a challenge.
It's like mom's dating again, like out there dating, dad's dating. Oh goodness, like what's going on?
Yeah. And dating is hard, and it's totally different now than the last time I was dating. I was dating 20 years before when there was, not only was there no dating apps, there was no texting. I mean, cell phones were new. I mean, I think I got my first cell phone when I was already with my ex-husband. So we didn't have cell phones when I went to college. It wasn't a thing.
Right. The pagers and like the phones, like the public phones.
Yeah. But even pagers were new. I think I got my first pager when I was like maybe 22.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really dating. I mean, really different. And I'm dating myself, but the whole world of dating has changed so much in the last 30 years that it's very difficult, I think, for people when they get divorced in midlife to have to like jump back into this pool that didn't exist.
Right.
Back then, and I've heard you talk about that because it wasn't really a thing before you got married, right? Is that what you said? Online dating?
Yeah. Online, because even though I got divorced, when was my divorce? In 2016. So like the dating apps were like kind of like around,
Me too.
but yeah.
2016. Barely even a year for divorce.
Exactly. So even like in my case, just kind of coming on to the dating apps, wait a minute, married in 2016, divorced in 2018. Oh my goodness.
There we go. Okay. That makes more sense. I was like, wow. Okay. I was like, you were really young.
Right. I had to think about it. I was like, wait a minute, how old am I? But yeah, divorced in 2018. So still like I guess in the later end of the 2010s. But anyway, so the dating apps, they were pretty much, I feel like it wasn't as many people on the apps as there are today.
Oh, I bet.
Because there was still a lot of people on the apps by the time I was getting on there. But oh my goodness, I feel like these days it was so oversaturated. And there's a lot of people on the apps that are still processing their stuff and their trauma and everything that probably shouldn't be on the apps because they're projecting or don't know how to process, or like they're like, oh, I just got a relationship about a month ago, I think I'm ready to date again. It's
right. There's lots of people looking for an ego boost, looking for some kind of excitement.
Exactly.
I mean, they're really not using it for actually finding a long-term relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. And and to those like that are listening and watching, if you're not ready to get out on the apps, you know what? We got so we're going to be doing some EFT tapping to get you ready.
Yes. We'll get you ready.
So so like even though like now you're in a relationship and everything, so what are your thoughts about the dating scene in Chicago? Like even just from like your single days to like now, like you could, because you did kind of touch on how it definitely has changed. What do you think about it now? Just seeing it as like, thank goodness I'm in a relationship. I ain't got to deal with that no more. I'm just kidding, but
I know, but a little bit, right? I mean, there is that. So I was thinking about it a lot after, when we were talking about this today, and I was thinking, it was interesting because I counted up of the little mini relationships, I'm going to say, that I've had in the last 8 years, anywhere from 3 months to a year and a half, basically. I realized more than 50% of them, once I counted, in real life, actually, and about 40% online. So there was a mix. And I think that surprised me because I was thinking I mostly had met people online, but I realized it's because I went out on so many first dates online. I have no idea my number, but it feels like 100. It feels like a lot. I went on a lot of first dates. And I think that for me, it was a challenge to be a single parent dating on the apps, living in the suburbs, because most single guys, particularly sort of in my age range in 40s and 50s, live in the city.
Yeah.
So, but in a way I realized it took me a while to realize this, but I realized it was a really good tester right off the bat to see, was he willing to come to me or not? Because if a guy's not willing to come to me on a first date, that's not a good sign.
Exactly.
That's somebody who's maybe a little like self-centered or not, willing to sort of meet you. And I remember actually in particular one guy who's kind of a famous person in Chicago, let's say, and he who shall remain nameless, but we had matched, and we actually knew someone he was related to and whatever, but we had matched, and he lived in the city, and he said, why don't you come down to the city? And I said, oh, okay. Like I sort of like it if we can either meet halfway or you can come up here. And he was like, well, I don't have a car. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we can meet in like Evanston, sort of compromise. And he said something about, well, don't you think that I'm special enough or I'm worth it. Don't you think I'm worth it?
Oh, because of my status, right?
Yes,
oh,
for you to
my
come all the way in the
goodness.
city. And I'm telling you, like maybe 6 to 8 months later, a big news scandal broke about him and some sexually inappropriate behavior he was doing with people that he met on the apps. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't say too much there. But anyway, yeah.
You dodged a bullet there.
I dodged a bullet. I dodged a bullet. So, I do think that's one thing people always want to remember is that when it doesn't work out, sometimes that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So, So I found it interesting listening to your show, getting ready for today. I was realizing that a lot of the things your guests who are in their 20s or 30s are talking about were some of the very same things I was experiencing in my 40s on the dating apps.
Yeah.
Flaky people, ghosting, hot and cold. I had one guy, we went out on a date and like brunch, and he got steak and eggs and a few drinks, alcoholic drinks, and I got tea and a quiche. Okay? This is relevant because he did pick up the check, and then he asked me out again, and I said, thanks, but no thanks, kind of a thing. And he said, okay, that's fine, but since we're not going out again where you could reciprocate picking up the bill, I'd like you to Venmo me your half of the...
Oh, my God.
True story. And he was a doctor. So it's not like,
wow.
like dude was broke.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
He wasn't hurting for money.
So anyway, so I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm not going to create a big drama here, but I'm not paying for your steak and eggs and your, Bloody Marys. So I said, that's fine. But my total was this. I totaled up what I owed with tax and tip. And then I Venmo'd that to him. And I was like, and then I block. Yeah. So, so that was one of the stories.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So unhinged men are out here.
Oh yeah. 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 One of my other, that I think I have a lot of funny dating stories. Honestly, I should probably just write a second book on that. But one of the other ones that this is on me, and it's kind of embarrassing, but oh my gosh, I matched with a guy and he said something in the opening line about, shall we do this again? And I said, I'm sorry, you look familiar to me, but I don't remember. Did we actually go out or did we just chat? Because you probably know how it is. Sometimes you just chat with people and then they disappear.
Yeah.
And then they pop back up again and,
Yeah.
all the things. And so he didn't say, he kind of just ignored that question, I guess, or whatever, and just sort of moved on to asking me out. So we go out on the date and we're talking, and a little bit into the date, I realize, oh my God, I've been out with this guy before and it was a bad date.
Oh no.
And he asked me out on a second date in the parking lot. And I said, I hesitated. And he goes, oh my God, you hesitated. And he turned and stormed and walked off. That was our first date.
Wow.
And now I'm out on a date with him again. And I was like, oh my God, how did I do this? That's when I was like, oh, I've been single way too long because I repeat cycling my dates.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, that was one of the things that got me very serious about, no, I really need to do the internal work so that what shows up on the outside starts to change, because this is not good.
So like, of all the dating apps that you've been on, which one would you say you got the most quality dates from?
Well, it's interesting. I felt like from the look of Hinge, I felt like it seemed like the most quality and most serious, and guys don't necessarily have fish in their pictures every other,
Yes.
I mean,
I've heard so many of like my lady friends say that I'm tired of seeing men with pictures of them fishing.
it is such a thing. I don't know what that's about, but it is a thing. So, but I actually don't know that I definitely didn't get any relationships out of that. I got 2 relationships out of OkCupid.
Ah, okay.
Quality guys for sure. And I had one of my longest term ones was from Bumble. So, I don't really know. I don't know that it matters that much.
Yeah.
Which app you're on and which, to me, I feel like honestly, actually it doesn't matter at all, because I kind of feel like we create our own reality. Right?
Yeah.
And we can talk and I'll nerd out on all the science, because some people are into law of attraction and into the woo, and that's great. I'm totally down with that. But also there's actually a lot of science behind why that happens. And so I really do believe that if you're always focused on the external, your pictures on your profile page or what you say, or you're hyper focused on that, then you're not doing the important work. And the important work is on the inside. And the important work is on imagining yourself in your future happy relationship. And the more you do that, and the more you work on healing the wounds that are getting activated by dating, the sooner your person is going to come to you and is going to find you.
I like that. I like that. Now that's so insightful. And even just thinking about it like that, it gives us an opportunity to like reframe how we want to really approach, how we present ourselves and the people that we want to let into our life.
Yeah, exactly. And also I feel like how to approach online dating, because it's a time suck if you let it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can really get. And so if you're going to spend, let's say, an hour on an app, maybe spend 15 minutes swiping, and then spend that same time that you would just lose to the app meditating or journaling about what kind of partner you want and how you want to feel. Most importantly is actually how you want to feel in the relationship. Do you want to feel supported? Do you want to feel loved and adored? Do you want to feel deep connection, emotional intimacy, all those things? Start spending your time really cultivating in your mind what kind of relationship you want. One of my fellow colleagues in this dating coaching space always says, your dream relationship needs to exist in two places. One, first and foremost, in your mind, and then second, in reality.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I like to talk to my clients about, it's like if you're going to redesign your living room, let's say, your bedroom, whatever, you create a vision for yourself, right? And it might first just start with, I just know I want like some calming, serene colors. And then, I kind of like the idea of doing, these kind of pillows against, this kind of wall covering or whatever, wallpaper or paneling or whatever. You start to imagine, right? You start to build it. And what you're really doing is you're imagining how you want to feel in that room, right? What kind of vibe you want to get from that room.
Absolutely.
And then when you're out shopping, you see things that catch your eye, like, that piece of art would go great with the vibe I'm looking for, right? Or that little, knick-knack or pillow or whatever. So then you start gathering. And then before you know it, you walk into your space one day and there it is. The room that you imagined is there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we manifest things all the time, but we don't think about it as manifesting necessarily. But that's a form of manifesting, just imagining and then picking up. And so similarly with dating, when you start to imagine your ideal partner, how you really want to feel in their presence, then when you start going out on dates, you're going to attract in people that have a little bit of that vibe or maybe a lot of that vibe, but you'll start to, I say, correct your picker, because you start to attract in people that are more and more in line with what it is that you're looking for. And then maybe if they're not fully that, then okay, that's great. You just learned a little bit more about that vision. You just added a little bit more detail to your vision that you're trying to create for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Such insightful information. Go all the way the fuck off. It's like a catchphrase of this show now.
Yeah, I've heard. I love it. I love it.
Even have like the little go all the way the fuck off bracelet. Like
That's cool.
Yeah, a little friend made it. Speaking of go all the way the fuck off, get your go all the way the fuck off t-shirts. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the go all the way the fuck off t-shirt right here. Promo code to go and get it, situationspodcast.com. Click on the merch tab. All right, get that t-shirt. So you wrote a best-selling book, Find Love Again, Learn to Date Like a Goddess. The title alone just reels me the fuck in. So what are like some of your previous life experiences and some of the events that kind of influenced you to write this book?
Yeah, so I love the title too, so thank you. But yeah, and the title kind of came to me because of the life experiences that were influencing me to write it. So what I realized is when I started dating again at 42, I quickly made friends with a lot of other single women who were also dating. And we started, spending time together, trading stories and discussing all sorts of things. And I realized early on that I had certain sort of skills and knowledge as a therapist. Mm-hmm. And I had this amazing tool of EFT tapping, which can calm your nerves, put out stress, help you with heartbreak, all that thing really fast. And we're going to talk more about that. But I had these things and I saw these women around me, and a lot of them were being given advice from their friends and family, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you have to date again. Like, oh, that's got to be awful. Right. I'm terribly sorry. And
it's hard out here.
It's hard out here. And a lot of those people were married, and they were like, you could tell they were like, I might not like my husband all the time, but I don't want to have to be single again,
Exactly.
So, right. So I realized that there's so many single women who, especially at midlife, I'm sure it happens to single men too, where there's just a lot of negativity and dread and fear at the idea of dating again. And so I wanted to help people mentally move from that negative place into a place of excitement and opportunity and empowerment to really kind of like become a goddess and to own it. Mm-hmm. Because I think what was happening was my single friends who were dating from that place of fear were kind of just like taking anything they could get type of thing.
Yeah, settling. Yeah.
They were settling for some guys that were not treating them well. And I feel like it was, it's heartbreaking at any age, but it felt especially heartbreaking when some of them, the very reason they left their marriages was repeating in their new relationship. And I said, it's like dating the same person in a different body.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And when that happens, it's really indicative, and I knew this as a therapist, it's really indicative that there's some pattern, there's some trauma pattern, childhood wounding, something like that is causing you to attract in and be attracted to that same person in a different body. And so I knew that I had stuff to share. I knew I had knowledge to share. I totally am a super neuroscience nerd. So I have a lot of I know a lot about how the brain works and why the brain will attach to people over and over again in different body and all this stuff. And so I wanted to just put it all in a book as a guide. And I say it's almost like I wrote it kind of like a love letter to my fellow single woman to just you are a goddess, know you're a goddess.
Yeah.
Let go of all the low self-worth, the feelings of unlovability and the feelings that you're going to die old. This is a thing. I don't know if this happens with younger women dating, but it definitely happens with women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I'm going to die alone. I'm going to die alone. Grow old alone. That kind of thing. And so the fear of that causes people to settle in relationships that aren't good for them. And so I really wanted to bring women out of that negative space. And I know that it's very frustrating when people give you these, sort of trite pieces of advice, like just love yourself more and everything will be okay. And while that's true, it's not easy to do. Right. And while I think pretty much everyone out there knows they need to let go of their feelings of low self-worth, but how? Well, EFT tapping is how. It makes it easy. So at the end of every chapter, I have a little tapping script.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. So these are kind of like what do you call it? Confidence building, confirmations.
Kind of. It's a little bit more. EFT works on the negative. Okay. So it's more clearing whatever is that negative. Remember I was saying clearing the things that are getting in your way to love? It's more that. So it's clearing that. So I'll teach a lesson. In the chapter I referred to, How Cinderella Fucked Me Up, the lesson in there is that I grew up thinking I needed to be chosen by a guy.
Okay.
And actually some of the hinged or unhinged things at the end, I think that might be what's going on. And so when you enter the dating pool thinking, I need to be pretty enough and perfect and clever and accomplished and all the things, you basically are trying to sell yourself rather than just be yourself.
Yeah.
So you're putting on this mask, you're putting on this front, you're putting out a version of you that you think a guy will like. Mm-hmm. And then you're attracting in a guy who likes that version of you, but that's not the real you.
Right.
So it's never going to work.
Yeah.
Right. But most people feel kind of damaged or broken or unworthy. I mean, most people feel that at some level. And so you have to clear those feelings so that you can be comfortable enough to actually show up just as you are.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do feel like that's actually a big part of what's happened in my current relationship. And I joke with him about this all the time because when we first met and started talking, I was like, I don't want a boyfriend in LA. I was like, you don't understand. Chicago winters are cold. And I want someone to cuddle up on the couch with and Netflix and chill. Like,
exactly.
I was like, we don't go out. We don't go out in the winter here. I was like, I can't have a boyfriend in LA. And so in a weird way though, as a result of that, I was completely myself because I was like, fine, break up with me. You know, if I tell you something, if he said something, like one of our early conversations, he was telling me how he's into camping. And I was like, oh, I don't camp. I'm not that girl. So if that's really important to you, you might as well just move on.
So we won't find you out in the woods, you know, like, or like out in nature catching a fish. And
yeah, I mean, I actually like nature and like hiking and all that, but like camping, no, like I need running water. You know what I mean? And so I literally like almost like ended it right then. I was like, oh no, I said, this is what I said, oh, we are not compatible. This is never going to work. And he was like, well, hold up. And I don't think that I would have been brave enough maybe to necessarily do that if he lived here. I might have just been like kept that to myself and filed it away. I mean, I wouldn't have been fake and like, oh, I love camping, but I would have just been like, I'm just going to keep to myself that I don't like camping. But in this situation, I was like, hey, I don't even care if this doesn't work out, you know, in the beginning. Right. And I was like, so I'm just going to be myself. But then what I realized is, oh, this is like what I talk about with my clients all the time. Just being your authentic self is actually what someone is going to find super attractive when it's the right person, when they're, you know, when they're looking for the flawed you. That's going to be your person. So, absolutely. You know, you want to show up as that person. But when you've been socially trained your whole life that I need to be chosen, like I always say this, so the stepsisters in Cinderella, right? They're like, oh, pick me, and knocking each other out of the way to get the prince's attention, right? And so a lot of women show up on dates with this sort of pick me, desperate vibe that is very unsexy, right? First of all. And yet it's really ingrained. So at the end of that chapter, I have a tapping script all about moving from always thinking you needed to be chosen to realizing, no, you are also doing the choosing. And you can be just as discerning. Obviously, you want to put your best foot forward.
Absolutely.
But you are not going in there just, oh, please like me. You're going in there with, I'm going to put my best foot forward and I'm going to check you out and see if this is even somebody I want to date.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, and even like being like a midlife dating coach, you know, and an author and a speaker, just so many roles here. So like, tell me more about like these avenues. Like, how did you what sparked that passion in you that was like, this is like what I want to chase after. This is who I want to be. Yeah,
that's a great question. I knew I wanted to be a social worker from an early age. So my degree is as a licensed clinical social worker. And that's actually what brought me to Chicago was grad school. I came here for that. And I worked in the inner city for a long time. I heard you say you grew up in Inglewood. I worked in Inglewood. I worked on the west side, and I worked for Department of Children and Family Services, basically, with kids that were in care. And so I worked with a lot of kids who've been through a lot of trauma. And I just found it really rewarding. And I was very passionate about it. And also over time, I got burnt out. Yeah. And it was a lot, you know, and I moved more into then training and staff training and things like that. And I really liked that. And then eventually I went out on my own and started doing trainings, you know, out of like a private practice kind of model. And I needed to get continuing education units as a therapist. You need continuing ed. And I kind of forgot about it because I had been working for an agency for years that always got it for me. So I suddenly found myself in the weeds and I was like, oh no, I need about 26 hours in I just like 4 months or something, not a lot of time to get a lot of hours. And So I decided, okay, by then I was already pretty interested in mind body stuff.
Yeah.
I had been doing a lot of like mindfulness work and yoga and progressive muscle relaxation, different mind body techniques with the kids that I had worked with I was actually at a psych hospital for a while. And so I knew I wanted to go into that. And I looked into something called EMDR, which is also great if anyone wants to explore that especially for treating trauma, and EFT. And the thing that I liked about the EFT tapping was you are literally tapping with your fingertips on your own acupressure points. So I was giving my clients a tool that they would always have access to.
Yeah.
It's literally at your fingertips, right?
Yes, literally.
Yeah. So with EMDR, you need to basically work with a practitioner on it. To a certain extent, there's been some changes, but originally it was these buzzers you held in your hand. So I went to the EFT training, and very serendipitously, I think it was the training for all of the Midwest, and it was in a couple weeks from when I realized I needed it desperately. And it said it's in Chicago for the Midwest. I was like, perfect. That's great. I'm going to go. So I sign up and go. And then a little bit before I start the training, they sent me an email with the exact location, and it was not in Chicago. It was in Glenview, Illinois, a mile up the street from where I lived. I was like,
right
what?
next door.
It was right next door. I mean, it was so, like, I could have walked. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then the other thing is a very dear friend of mine had just passed away, someone I worked with for years. And her name was Cindy, and she lived in Naperville, and she died of breast cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thanks. And so I was in the room, and you go around doing introductions, and the woman 2 rows in front of me, I promise you it's a true story, says, hi, my name is Cindy. I'm from Naperville, and I work with breast cancer survivors.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I am in the right place.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was what I was like, all right, message received.
Yeah.
I am supposed to be doing this.
Yep.
So then I started doing EFT, and I started an EFT practice, and this was back in 2014. And at the time, nobody had really heard of it. And so you basically saw your clients on Zoom because my clients were from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody had really heard of Zoom either.
Right.
But,
What is this?
but that's what I was doing. and so I started this EFT coaching practice, and it was perfect because I then got divorced 2 years into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a single mom, so I needed to work from home. So it all serendipitously worked out very well for me.
Yeah.
And I realized this EFT tapping, especially when it comes to the trauma work, is so much faster and more powerful, I feel like, than regular talk therapy, which, not hating on talk therapy, it's great and it's helpful. And I have clients that do that while they're working with me. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a great place for both. But I started solely doing the EFT coaching. And then, like I said, I went through my own divorce and I started dating. And I realized, no, I actually want to pivot and work with these women, because I feel like there are a lot of people out there giving advice on dating who are either a lot younger than my clients. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but it is a little different. And also there are a lot of people out there who are working with midlife divorced women who have never been divorced, and they're not dating, and they don't understand about it or know about, I feel like because I had this lived experience, I had so much more to offer to the women that I work with. So
wow,
that's why I pivoted.
Yeah. Wow. Like it all came full circle.
It did.
Sure.
It did.
Trying to improve your skincare game? Guess what? I got a little something for you. You can improve the health of your skincare with the Vogue approved. Yes, you heard that right. Vogue, as in Vogue magazines, the models. Yes, that Vogue. The Vogue approved beauty product, Herbal Face Food, the most potent anti-aging, multi-correction skincare product on the market. Yes. So hit that link in the show notes or video description and use our code SPHFF to get 20% off at checkout. Visit herbalfacefood.com to get started. That's herbalfacefood.com. All right. And use code S as in Sam, P as in pineapple, H as in Henry, F as in Frank, F as in Frank to get 20% off at checkout. That's SPHFF to get 20% off, all right? herbalfacefood.com, okay? Y'all got the hookup, so let them know that Situaseans podcast sent you, all right? What were some of the things that kind of helped, you find love again after your divorce?
So what I realized after my divorce was that I really had some patterns that were unhelpful to me in terms of choosing a partner and not feeling comfortable speaking my truth always. I had very much like people-pleasing tendencies. I did not have healthy boundaries. And no amount of talking about healthy boundaries was really helping me to get better at setting them. And that's when I realized I must have some subconscious blocks, subconscious programming. So here we go. I'm going to start the nerding out. So
yes, nerd all the way the fuck out. Like we love it. We love a good nerding out. So yes, drop the knowledge.
So when we are up until the age of about 6 or 7, we are basically all functioning in what is called a theta brainwave state. And theta is, we walk around, our awake state is beta. And then we're in alpha, which is our relaxed state that you're in maybe if you meditate or if you do yoga and shavasana. And then there is theta, is that in and out where you're kind of dreaming, kind of awake. Yeah. And then delta is sleep, right? And so theta is a hypnotic state of sorts. So any information that you received in those first 6 to 7 years is basically just going straight into your subconscious, no filter. So that is where a lot of our early beliefs are formed, and we are not even aware of them because they were put in there pre-verbal, before we had verbal abilities. Mm-hmm. So they're not encoded at a verbal level. So these things get encoded in what is called a sensory memory way as opposed to an autobiographical memory way. So autobiographical memory is, I remember when I was a kid and this and such happens. You're telling a story.
Yeah.
And most of our memories are like that. A sensory memory is if I say to you, cafeteria lunchroom, do you get kind of a smell on your nose?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Like a memory. Yeah.
Right. That's a sensory memory. Okay. Because you didn't have a thought, oh yeah, I remember that smell. No, you just were hit by that memory.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that if things have happened to us, especially trauma, or even just there's sort of big T trauma and little T traumas, right? Mm-hmm. So it could still even be a little T trauma. It could be that your parents had a fight when chicken soup was on the stove but it just was a fight that for whatever reason just really hit you and stuck with you. And maybe afterwards one of your parents stormed out the door and you thought they were going to be gone or something. And now the smell of chicken soup can kind of trigger abandonment fears in you.
Right.
And you don't even realize, you don't have any conscious awareness of that connection.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about clearing subconscious blocks, that's what I'm talking about, is these little things. So I'll give you an example. And I do think this helped me to eventually find love again. So I was working with an EFT practitioner. I work with somebody myself, my mentor, and we were doing a session. And I kind of forget, we always start with whatever's going on in the present. Something is bothering me in the present. At this point in my life, I just recognize that anytime I'm overly emotional about something in the present, it must be a trigger from my past. Has to be. Because, sometimes you like overreact and you can even see it. You can look at yourself and be like, why am I overreacting in this situation? Sometimes you don't notice, but sometimes you notice, right? So to me now it's like, I almost get excited when I overreact because I'm like, ooh, there's something there that needs healing. And now I have this great tool of EFT to apply to it. So I know I'm going to heal it. So I'm trying to remember what the problem was in the present, but whatever it was, we started tapping, he and I, and tapping clears this emotional gunk from your brain. So you get these insights can drop in because the blood, when you're emotional, the blood constricts to your mid and hindbrain and you're not using your frontal lobe, which is our logic, reason, and judgment part of our brain anymore. So when you start tapping, the blood actually flows back out to the frontal lobe so you can think better, basically,
Yeah.
and think more clearly. So this memory pops in of me being a little kid walking with my sister and some of the neighborhood kids to the Big Rock. It was a thing in New Jersey. Everybody's neighborhood had a big rock. And was your big rock bigger than my big rock? I don't know. It was like a thing we talked about in school.
Yeah.
And so we made this trek one day. We were going to go out to the big rock, and I'd never been allowed to come before. And so I was super excited, and I was super girly. I still am super girly, but I was definitely girly, and I had on like, I think my jelly shoes and a dress and stockings. I was not dressed for an appropriate hike through the woods, but I went, and at some point we hit a patch of mud, and I didn't want to cross the mud, and I kind of just froze, and my sister started getting annoyed with me and looking at me like, stop being a baby, just go through the mud. And Jimmy DeSato, the older boy in the neighborhood, came over, and he picked me up, and he gave me a piggyback and took me across the mud. But when I was tapping on this incident, and I had no idea, by the way, I was saying to my mentor, like, I have no idea why this is coming up. It didn't feel traumatic, but when I was tapping on this incident, what came to very clear to my mind was that when he picked me up and put me on his back, my sister gave me this evil look.
Oh.
And she was very jealous.
Yeah.
Because I was getting a lift and she wasn't.
And getting the attention, yes.
Right?
From what was his name?
From a man,
Yes,
from Jimmy DeSato.
From Jimmy DeSato.
And that's exactly it. And you just hit on it. So that was the pattern. So from then on, I felt like it was not okay to get attention from men because I would lose my sister.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I always had this more loyalty to other single women. So I would like end relationships. If I was dating a guy and he, wanted to spend more time with me than I was, maybe I was giving my girlfriends more time than him, and he was like kind of getting like upset or sad about it, I'd be like, sorry, bye. I would like end these relationships because of this. And when I got this awareness and this insight, I thought, oh, wow, okay, this is a problem because I really am more, I was sort of more, there's a psychologist I follow, Dr. Hendricks, who talks about if you're single, it means you're subconsciously more committed to being single than to being partnered.
Ah, wow. Wow.
Yeah. And it's a tough one. It's a tough pill to swallow, right? Because you're like, no. I want to be in a relationship. I know I do. And that's how I felt. I felt like, no, I really want to. But at some subconscious level, I was actually more aligned with being single so that I could hang out with my single sisters, my little sisterhood of single girls, than being in a relationship. And I can tell you that after that tapping session, like maybe 2 months later, I met a guy and we ended up being the one I was dating when I wrote the book. And that was about a 16-month relationship. So I think that once I cleared that block, then I was able to feel safe enough to be in a relationship. And it was all super subconscious and super subtle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I just love how you were able to take these life lessons, take these past experiences, and you're able to kind of recognize, oh, okay, this is that block that's happening. This is like what's causing this. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And some of it I realized because I had bigger things, like even writing this book. I thought about writing this book for years. I had the title for years. And when COVID hit, I thought, okay, now I'm going to write Learn to Date Like a Goddess because I got lots of time, right?
Yeah.
And I still didn't. It wasn't until I did a tapping session on, it was actually about turning 50. I was starting to get panicky about turning 50. And I did a tapping session. And my mentor was like, well, what is it about? Okay, you don't know. Let's tap on that, even though I don't know what it's about. So sometimes you can just tap on the confusion and then clarity comes in. And what came in was people always told me my whole life, you should write a book. And I always wanted to write a book. And my subconscious felt somehow like if I didn't do it before 50, I was missing out or something somehow. And so once I did that tapping, and then I tapped a little bit too on clearing the fear of putting my stuff out there. I mean, it's a very personal book. I tell a lot of personal stories.
Yeah.
And that's scary, right?
Yeah.
But once I tapped on that, then I wrote the book. I wrote it in 6 months after that and published it. It was published 6 months after that tapping session.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The floodgates open sometimes when you clear those subconscious blocks.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, so even like as a psychotherapist and as an EFT practitioner, can you kind of like educate our audience on like what psychotherapy is and what does EFT stand for?
Yeah, sure. So EFT, let's start there. So that is the emotional freedom technique. It is widely known these days as tapping because it is something where you will tap with your own fingertips. People always get this confused. I don't tap on my clients. You tap with your own fingertips on 9 particular acupressure points. And they are all meridian endpoints, except for the last one, which is the top of the head is where all the meridians cross over. So it is based on Chinese medicine. I've not trained in Chinese medicine. I don't profess to know a lot about it, but I know a little bit about it. But what it is it's combining this stimulating of acupressure points with processing emotionally heavy material. So there's a little bit of an aspect of sort of traditional psychology, I guess, if you will, but it's really very different from regular therapy because it's practitioner led. So if you say to me, I want to work on my subconscious blocks, right? About being single. And then I'll say, well, what's bothering you the most right now? Well, I keep attracting the same kind of girl who doesn't treat me well, let's just say, or whatever it is, right? So then we'll start
That's
there.
actually factual.
Oh, really? Okay, so here we go. And the session begins. Right. So we will start tapping on that. And I lead you through it. So I'll kind of say, okay, I'm going to say some things. I want you to echo them back to me while you're tapping. And if I say something that doesn't resonate, let me know. But we will check in at the end of each round to kind of see what has changed, shift, or moved. So I would start by saying to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how distressing does it feel that you keep attracting the same kind of person? And maybe you're going to say a 9, and then we'll start tapping, even though I keep attracting the same person over and over. I accept myself anyway. It's kind of the phraseology that we use. And then you tap through the points. I keep attracting the same person. You go through all the points, take a deep breath. We check in again. Pretty much always your number has gone down. Occasionally it'll go up, but it's not really, it's usually because a different feeling comes up. So maybe you clear anger and then sadness comes up. And maybe the anger was a 7 and sadness is a 10. Right. That can happen. It really is amazing. Most people get very emotional. I just taught a class on this recently and like half the room was crying and they were all like, what is happening? And that's where I say, that's when you know it works though, because it seems like magic, but it actually works. So the big difference between EFT and psychotherapy is that EFT is practitioner-led. I'm working with my clients. I'm looking very closely at you to see, does your body language change? Because that will tell me that something moved, something shifted. The emotion either changed or a new thought came in. And so a lot of times my clients will say, wait a minute, now I'm realizing, like here, I'll give a great example. I was working with a client and she was telling me about, she was dating like 5 different guys, like just, she had just gotten back online. She was kind of checking things out and seeing, discerning and figuring out where she was headed with dating. And this is recently after a divorce. And she was, the guy she was the most interested in was the guy that was clearly the least interested in her.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So like all the other guys are like trying to set up second, third dates. And the one that was kind of like, and he had kind of said, oh, I don't know if I really want to date someone who's divorced and that kind of thing. Oh. So he was the one, she was like, well, I really want to go out with him again, but he hasn't asked yet. But do you think I should call him? And I said, whoa, let's just stop. I'm not even going to give you any advice. Let's just start tapping on it. Let's just see. So we start tapping on, even though I think I should call him again, we go through the points. We get about halfway through the round and she goes, what am I thinking? I don't want to go out with a guy who just doesn't want to go out with me. Forget that. I'm done with him. And then I talked to her about it a couple of weeks later and I said, did you ever call back that guy? She goes, what guy? Oh, no, I was done. So it happened just like that.
Wow.
Just like that. She had an urge to call him because, well, there's a bunch of reasons why we do that. But one of the reasons can be that it feeds your ego, right? It's like, we want what we can't have. You want the person who isn't interested in you because somehow you feel like that's going to validate you and your worth.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
And so you're like, no, I want this person. All the other ones, okay, fine. But I want the one who, isn't showing the interest because then I'll feel better about myself. So there's a little bit of a game to it. Also, some of us feel unlovable or have low self-esteem enough that when someone is into us, our subconscious thinks, well, there must be something wrong with them.
Ah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of women end up rejecting the really nice guys, because the really nice guys are just into them and they're just, showing up consistently.
Me as a nice guy.
Okay. And then here's one more dynamic that happens, right? Is that, and I do think this happens a lot where it's like the nice guy is getting the like hot and cold woman and vice versa. Right. When I first started dating, I was like, oh my God, I'm dating the nicest men. I didn't even know they were out there because I didn't date a lot before I got married. And I was like, and all of them were cheated on by their wives. Like, what is this about? I was like, these are like super nice guys. What were these women thinking? So anyway, the other thing that does happen though is there is, what is it called? It's like there's the principle of intermittent reinforcement.
Oh, okay.
Familiar with that?
I've
the
heard
slot
this.
machine principle?
Yeah. In therapy, we've talked about this, but definitely share with the listeners.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, if somebody is only giving you breadcrumbs of attention or hot and cold or dropping in and dropping out, you get hooked on this sort of like slot machine dopamine cycle with them. So when you don't hear from them, you feel despair and you start to feel panic and you start to feel unworthy and all of these things. And then they pop up with a text and you feel over the moon excited.
Right. It's the reassurance.
Like,
okay. We're back in this.
We're
okay.
Back. And yes, I am actually lovable by this person. And usually it's someone you feel like is out of your league or something like that. Right. And so when that happens, you get this massive hit of dopamine. And a lot of people mistake that for love. So they feel like I'm so in love with this person when no, you're actually just riding this biochemical roller coaster.
Yeah.
That is is making these ups feel really intense and pleasurable. And then the downs feel horrible, but it's just like the slot machine. You keep pulling the handle because you don't know when it's coming. And in fact, the more unpredictable the person is in their, giving you attention, the more hooked you become.
Yeah.
Just like a slot machine.
Yep.
And when a guy shows up and he's consistent and he is just on point, a lot of women will say, well, it feels boring. Or I don't think I love him.
Right.
Because they're not getting that high. They're not getting that dopamine rush.
Yeah. There's no guess as to like whether or not this guy likes him. Like he's communicating it.
Right.
He's showing up.
Right. But at a biochemical level, you're not getting these big, dumps of happy hormones of cortisol and dopamine and epinephrine and all those kind of things. So, so that's why it feels like, and that's why people will question, well, is this really love or not? Or, so that's what happens. And then they keep going out and seeking people who are never going to give them what they want because they have this pattern of feeling sort of unworthy of actual love. And B, they're getting this biochemical high off the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, like you just spoke to my soul.
Really?
Oh my goodness. Like, it's like the other day I got like a, you're a nice guy, like text or whatever. Sorry, and like to make a long story short, we've only maybe gone on about maybe like 3 dates total. So like barely got to really know each other, but the first couple of days were like really good and everything. And we were kind of just like very open with each other about our past experiences, our past trauma. And I usually don't open up to somebody like I guess that quickly. Cause I feel like I never want to trauma dump on somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially if it's like we're just in the beginning stages of getting to know each other. And, I'm an open book. Like if someone wants to trauma dump, by all means do it. But, cause I definitely want to create that safe space. But, anyway, so because we were able to kind of share in those moments, like some of the things that we've gone through, we kind of like built, a kind of a close connection. But after like the third date, I'm like, dropping her off and I'm like, hey, because she was like kind of quick to get out of the car, whatever. And like, we haven't kissed at this point. I was like, oh, hey, can I, like have a kiss or whatever? And she was like, oh, on the cheeks is fine. I was like, okay, kiss on the cheeks or whatever. And then like literally 5 minutes after I drive away, she's like, oh, were you expecting like an actual kiss? I kind of was getting friend vibes from you. I was like, oh, well, I was just trying to, like be respectful of your space. I don't want to just go in and,
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I feel like a kiss should be spontaneous. I'm just like, well, like I'm in the back of my head, I'm like, well, what spontaneity could I really, I guess do in that moment to like make it happen?
Right.
Because it's like, again, she's quick to get out of the car and I'm like, okay, I don't want to,
Right.
So
right. It's tricky, right? It's really tricky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got the you're the nice guy text or whatever. She was like, I really appreciate, you being vulnerable and sharing with yourself and everything. And just based off of the guys she's been with in the past, they've been very like not attentive to like, anything like that she has to say or that she has to offer. So she was kind of just being taken advantage of, I guess, emotionally by a lot of guys. And then me, like I come along and I'm sharing, I'm like, hey, I affirmed everything that she's gone through. I'm like, hey, your opinions matter. Your, like your thoughts, experiences, they all matter, so I come along and I'm just like, hey, this is like, and I end up getting like the nice guy text. I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't know.
Right. No, I hear you. I went through a point where I was like realizing I was dating these nice guys and then it wasn't working out. And they had been married to these like really like kind of heinous women in terms of the treatment that they received from these women.
Oh no.
And I did think, wait a minute, do I have to be a total bitch to get like a good guy? I really had that thought.
Right.
I did have that worry. And I thought, what is going on here? And, I realized that a lot of it goes back to, their damage and their stuff.
Yeah.
And if they are not able to, if they're not in this space where they can be loved by a good person, it means that they just have too much, they just have a lot of work still that they need to do in order to do that. I know we talked about that we were going to talk about this. How do I clear the asshole sign off my head?
Exactly. Yes. That too. Yes. I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah. Because this is kind of getting into that territory, right?
Yeah.
So you want to go there
Let's
now?
jump in. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that what happens is that because we have some of this core wounding, we all do, it just takes different forms. And then we let it play out at the subconscious level and we're not consciously aware of it. We continue to attract in and be attracted to people who are serving our need to kind of master a situation. So this is kind of a trite but classic and very common example is if you had one caregiver growing up or both who were inconsistent, hot and cold, not emotionally available and not able to meet your emotional needs. What happens as adults is we want to master that situation. This is all very subconscious, but we want to master that situation. We want to essentially find the person who is emotionally unavailable, somehow get them to love us, give our emotion, meet our emotional needs. And then we will feel triumphant because at a certain subconscious level, is like maybe yucky as it sounds, it's like, okay, I got my dad to love me or my mom to love me, right?
Ah, yeah.
That's what's happening. There's a younger version of you that so desperately still wants that consistent love from your parent or caregiver that you will play that out over and over again in the dating space.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And it's the part of our brains that's responsible for seeing and identifying patterns and filtering out information we don't need. So obviously all day long, we're bombarded with tons of information and our reticular activating system will just kind of narrow in on the things that it feels like you need to pay attention to, that's been sort of programmed for one reason or another. So if your reticular activating system, for instance, thinks that love is inconsistency, because maybe that's, you think your parents love you and sometimes they do. I mean, hurt people, right? And
oh, yes.
and that happens not just in dating, but in parent-child relationships, unfortunately, right? So if your parent was emotionally unavailable to you, you still encoded that, because remember, we're walking around in that theta brainwave state. You still encoded that at a subconscious level as that is love. Yeah. So when you meet someone who's giving off that vibe, you're like, ooh, I love that person.
Right. Yeah.
Because you've been subconsciously programmed to think hot and cold behavior is love. and then add on these ups and downs and all, and it's just a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
But something really interesting happens with that reticular activating system. If I always like people to think about it this way: when you decide to buy a new car, if you decide I'm going to get a Jeep, suddenly you're driving around the road and you see Jeeps everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Something
right.
like that?
You notice things exactly.
You notice, and you're like, were there always that many Jeeps on the road?
Exactly.
Like, huh? Okay, the Jeeps were always there. They didn't just magically appear when you started thinking about getting one. But in a way, they did magically appear because now your reticular activating system is picking up on them and is seeing and identifying them. So the same thing happens when you start to do the internal work and you start to heal that part of you that so desperately still needs mom or dad to love you. When you can start to clear away all of that pain with the EFT tapping, then you can start to give yourself that love. And then you can start to see other people. So the welcome asshole sign on your forehead will go away because you're no longer operating at that vibe. You know, you're not showing up subconsciously looking for the assholes. You're showing up. Okay, so I have the greatest story about this.
Yes,
Are you
do
ready?
tell.
I do tell this in my book, but I just love it. So there was a woman who lived in a high-rise building for 8 years and dated lots of jerks. She did have a very complicated relationship with her dad. She, was dating guy after guy who was sort of using and abusing and dumping her. And she couldn't take the pain anymore and started really working on herself. And she was in regular therapy. She was doing EFT. I think she did Reiki. She did a bunch of healing modalities.
Yeah.
And one day she gets on the elevator in her building and she sees this guy, this handsome guy. And I've seen pictures of him, and I would say he's an objectively handsome man, okay? Which is important for the story. And so she's on the elevator, and they start chatting, and he asks her out for coffee. And she goes out with him, and she realizes, wow, like, he's really different from all the other guys I've dated. And they just hit it off, and they continue to go out, and they're about 3 months in the relationship, and she's like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this guy adores me, and he's so consistent, and he shows up, and I'm not waiting for his text. He just, he's there. And he says to her, about 3-4 months in, he says to her, for 8 years, I've been in that elevator with you.
Oh.
Hoping to ask you out, but you never just gave me the time of day. So I felt too shy to ask you out.
Damn. Right there the entire time.
Right there. Objectively handsome. Like when I always get chills when I tell this story because I'm like, how did she not see that guy? Like, what? So there could be like, your perfect woman could be at your Starbucks and you're seeing her every day, but you're not seeing her every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always getting sushi like at least 2-3 times a week. So I'm gonna like keep my eyes
there
peeled.
You go. Yeah. And then I'm going to teach you tapping here, and then you can start tapping on some of those past patterns, clear them, and then you'll just start to see the new women. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And like one of my good lady friends recently started saying we're manifesting, and I am like all the way here for it. Instead of I'm like, oh my goodness, I love that. We're manifesting.
Yeah. So this is the thing. I mean, everything I'm talking about is actually manifesting, but the problem is that so manifesting in psychology, by the way, is just called the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's been around forever, but it's, now it's got all this like hype and vibe, and it's great. And I love it. And it really does work, but it's because you are focusing your mind on something, and you're focusing and you're creating in your mind that feeling state that you want to experience. So then you actually become a magnetic field for that. And that's just physics.
Yeah.
And so you literally attract it in. But the thing that I think people struggle with is that the subconscious blocks might be stronger for something to not manifest in your life than your desire for it to manifest at a conscious level. So if there's that dichotomy where it's like, the tip of the iceberg is I really want a relationship, but under the iceberg is I'm so scared to be in a relationship. I am afraid I'm going to get hurt again. Whatever is under the iceberg, that's keeping you sunk, right? No matter how much you want something and you're trying to manifest something, it's never going to happen if you have subconscious blocks to calling it into your life.
Wow. It's just like, and everything that you've been sharing so far, because even like the whole, like our past experiences kind of, have influence on the decisions that we make and the people that we kind of choose. Like even like my mom, like she, like love her to death. And like, I know my mom loves me, but like, we never heard growing up, like, oh, I love you. Like she never said that to like either, but like to either like me or my siblings. So maybe like once or twice that I could like recall in my entire life, but it was like critical moments, like, oh, like, I needed to get like this really intense surgery and be surgery, whatever, because I got hurt or whatever. I love you, Sean, or whatever. But so like that, and then like my stepdad was very abusive towards me and my siblings, and like he and I would like always like literally like throw hands and fight because he was hurt because his stepfather abused him, and so. I was like,
generational,
exactly, that generational trauma. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let that. I'm not going to be that person. That's not who I want to be. I never want to, like carry that into like my, present or anything like that. So like we were never really allowed to kind of have a voice or kind of talk about feelings or talk about, expressiveness or anything like that. So I found musical theater, and that's where I was able to kind of be expressive and share feelings and share all that stuff. So it's kind of like, you mentioning like, we kind of end up dating our parents essentially, like in people that we, and I did come across exactly
until we do the work. And the more, and it's not like, there's not necessarily a magical moment where you've done enough work. I feel like as you're doing the work, things will start to shift and you'll start to attract in better and better experiences.
Yeah. Cause even like my last relationship, she was very narcissistic and she had a lot of trauma of her own, but she never had a chance to really process any of it. So she projected it onto me. And it took about 1.5 years for me to like leave and be like, I can't do this anymore. So I've been out on several dates since that relationship ended in the middle of 2022. And I've come across a couple of women that were necessarily kind of trying to be somewhere, I guess, working on their emotional journey. And they were still in that kind of, I don't know how to process this phase. I was like, I can't be like, I can't help you find your happiness. You got to find that on your own.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I definitely dodged some bullets. But yes, I think I'm more aware these days as to like, okay, how do I want to, like, I know how I want to present myself, but like the people that I bring into my life, like where, like, how far along are they on their journey? I think that's kind of like where I'm at now. It's like if I want to be with somebody, I want to be with somebody that's a little bit further on that journey than in the beginning stages of what do I do?
Yeah. And, I think the first step is becoming really consciously aware of that. So you have that. So now when you go on a date with someone and you realize they're not, and you might have to make the hard choice because you might say, gosh, they have like all these other things I like and they're hot or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's what keeps us in when we shouldn't be in, right? And so it becomes really hard to walk away and to have that faith that, no, I'm not. Because I think what happens is people do this. They'll date someone, they'll be like, they have almost everything I want. And so they stay. And so what is behind that thought process? Is fear.
Yeah.
It's fear and lack of faith that somebody that has everything you want is going to show up. So the person who has almost everything, you'll stay in it because you're actually afraid that if you walk away, you won't get the real deal.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So that's actually kind of my whole shtick with my program and everything that I do is I help people clear the fear with EFT tapping. So if you went out with that person who had almost all the things and you're like, oh, and they're so attractive and what am I going to, and then you tap on that, just like the woman who tapped on the guy she was chasing, you tap on that. Sometimes after tapping, you're like, oh, no, yeah, they're hot, but it's not, it's a no, know, because you're taking the emotion out of it. The emotion is sometimes what keeps us in, especially if it's fear. We're very motivated by fear as humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tap away the fear and suddenly you become really clear about what it is that you want. And then I do feel like the more you say no, the more, like I told you earlier in this interview that I was dating that one guy, I'm like, he has so many things. This is so hard, you know? But I was like, no, I have to kind of live what I say. I have to, practice what I preach. And he is not showing up consistently enough for me, and he is not prioritizing us. And that's probably not going to change. I mean, the other thing is people show you who they are. Believe them.
Exactly.
Just
absolutely.
Don't convince yourself. I mean, I'm a therapist. Trust me. I feel like, I could change everybody. That was what happened with my ex-husband. I thought I could change him because I was young and naive. And, yes, people change. Of course, people change. And I think what's really important is to find a partner who is into growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
So that you can grow together, but you can't expect or be setting yourself up for, okay, they're going to change and then it's going to work out. That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. I hope I get to find my elevator girl out there somewhere. That's what I'm going to start calling it now. Elevator person.
There you go. I like it. Avoid that.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, can you do me a really quick favor? Can you please rate and review this podcast? Like, hit that 5-star review, because, and I do read all the reviews because this helps me know how this podcast is helping others and how, this podcast is serving you, because my job as a host is to serve you this podcast the way that you would prefer it to be. Yeah, so even just talking about like EFT tapping, I really want to know, like how can EFT tapping help clear those subconscious blocks and like, I guess, and that get us all stuck. And can we also kind of do a little demo here live on the show?
Yeah, for sure. So the way it works, the way it clears the subconscious blocks is because it's always working on the emotion. So what happens is when you stimulate these particular acupressure points, it sends a calming signal to the amygdala, the fight or flight part of your brain, and it shuts it off. So the one thing that people do always ask me, because you tap on something negative, and people always say, well, why? I don't want to affirm this negative thing. But it's important to tap on the negative because you want to clear it, and you can only clear it if you're feeling it.
Yeah.
So when you're in that emotional state and then you tap, you send that calming signal, it shuts off the emotion brain, and then it rewires the thought to your frontal lobe, to your, prefrontal cortex with the logic and judgment. And so that's basically how it works. And people also ask me a lot, well, is it because I'm just thinking about it, or could I tap anywhere on my body? And studies have been really clear. They've done EEG studies where they've had people on EEGs while tapping. It shows they very quickly go into alpha brainwave state. They go into this relaxation response. And they've done blood and saliva tests pre and post, and people's cortisol, the stress hormone, drops by an average of 24%.
Wow.
Up to 50% in some people, just from one session of tapping.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So it does your body a world of good, and it really puts you into this relaxation response, which is where our body heals and restores and repairs. And your central nervous system is like an on-off switch. So you can't be revved up emotionally and relaxed at the same time. We don't work that way. So we're either one or we're the other. And the tapping sort of forces the switch to turn off. So if you're feeling really emotional and you tap, after a while, the emotion, it almost feels like it evaporates out of the body. It's so cool. Yeah. And then it's just gone. But what's happening is because you keep sending that calming signal with the stimulating of the acupressure points, eventually that switch gets right and turned off. Eventually gets turned off. And so that is what happens. And that is how it will clear a block, because suddenly that thought that you had, that fear that was keeping something in place, maybe it's a fear of failure, a fear of success, whatever it is, goes away. And then suddenly you're like, okay, well, now it's no problem to do that.
Right.
Right. So it's like if you have like a fear of public speaking and then you tap on it, suddenly you're like, what was I even scared of? So it kind of works like that. But in the relationship space, we might have fears of losing ourselves in a relationship. We might have fears of living with someone again. We might have fears that we're going to get abandoned, rejected, betrayed, all those things. And those can be wreaking havoc in the background. And also, by the way, causing us to pick partners who aren't really available because part of us is actually afraid of dating the available person.
Yeah.
So when we tap on those fears, suddenly you actually feel more attracted to the consistent person once you tap on these fears. So,
all right.
Yeah. So you want to try it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So, I know we had talked about, so one of the really cool things you can do with tapping is you can tap away like first date nerves. So we talked about that, although I was thinking about it too on the drive here and I was thinking, well, maybe do we want to do that or do we want to just do the sort of I hate online dating kind of thing? Because that's a really common.
So many of my listeners have aired their frustrations about hating online dating.
Everybody hates it, right? It's the worst. It really is the worst. So I always called it a necessary evil. I'm like, I'm a single mom who works from home. I have to online date. But, yeah. So, so let's do that.
All right.
Okay. So I can think that through. So the first point is on the side of our hands, on the fleshy side, below the pinky knuckle. And you're going to take your fingertips and just tap right against that.
All right. And if those of you that are only listening via audio, we're tapping on the side of our pinky. And if you hear like a little bit of a tapping on the microphone, that's why.
That's why.
Bear with us. Just think of it as, your own tapping, like you're hearing your own tapping.
That's right. I know. I'm wondering like how this sounds. Okay. So that's where we start. And we always say a statement there 3 times. And the statement will be pairing the problem that we want to clear, the emotion we want to clear, with some kind of statement of acceptance or understanding.
Okay.
And that is based on the theory that it's sort of the ultimate paradox of mental health, that in order to change, you must first accept where you are.
Yes.
And it's so hard to do that. So we're going to say the statement 3 times to kind of prime the brain for that. And then we're going to go through the points. So I'll just talk through all the points first, and then we'll actually do the tapping. So after the side of the hand point, you want to take your hand, one or both, to the bridge of your nose, where the bridge of your nose and your eyebrows meet. That's the next point.
All right.
And then you're going to go outside your eye, not quite the temple, closer into your eye. That's the outside the eye point. Tap there. And then you're going to go under your eye on that bony ridge right below your pupil.
All right.
Next is under the nose, and it's right where the top of the lip and the nose meet. And then you're going to go into the chin crease right there. Here you go. The next point, we call it the collarbone, but it's actually below the bone. So you're going to find that little hollow in your neck. You're going to go down about 1 inch and over about 2. And there's 2 dents. And most people take 2 hands, but we have mics, so we're going to use our thumb and our finger, and we're going to tap those 2 points. And then the second to last point is under the arm, right a couple of inches below the armpit, or where the bra strap crosses in women is always where I say. And then the last point is just the top of the head, the crown point. And then you tap there, and then we'll pause, take a deep breath, and check in.
All right.
All right. So are you ready?
Yeah. Everyone take a deep breath with us.
Take a deep breath. And just tune in to how much you hate online dating, and give it a number on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being intensely hate. Got your number, Sean?
Oh, I got my number. Do I say it out loud or do I keep it inside?
You can say it out loud. Say it out loud.
10.
All right. Okay.
20. No,
I know, right? Sometimes things feel that way. Okay. So now just tapping on the side of the hand and just repeat after me. Even though I hate online dating.
Even though I hate online dating.
I accept that I hate it.
I accept that I hate it.
Even though I really hate online dating.
Even though I really hate online dating.
I do it anyway.
I do it anyway.
It feels like a necessary evil.
It feels like a necessary evil.
And I accept myself.
And I accept myself.
Even with this hate.
Even with this hate.
And even though I really, really hate online dating.
And even though I really, really hate online dating.
And I've had so many bad experiences.
And I've had so many bad experiences.
I accept myself anyway.
I accept myself anyway.
And I'm okay.
And I'm okay.
Okay. Now go to the eyebrow point and just start tapping there and say, I really hate online dating.
I really hate online dating.
Now go to the side of the eye. I hate it so much.
I hate it so much.
Now go right here under the eye. I really hate online dating.
I really hate online dating.
Under the nose. It's just awful.
It's just awful.
Chin crease. I hate online dating.
I hate online dating.
Collarbone point. I hate it so much.
I hate it so much.
Under the arm. I really hate online dating.
I really hate online dating.
Top of the head. I hate it so much.
I hate it so much.
Okay, now take a deep breath. And check in. So now just tune in to hating online dating and scale 1 to 10. How much do you hate it?
I feel like it went down to like an 8 or 7.
Cool, right?
Wow. Wow. Holy shit.
I know, it's wild. It's totally wild. It never ceases to stop amazing me. It's crazy. I've cleared people's phobias in like 10 minutes. I mean, this thing is powerful.
Wow. And those of you that are listening and watching, I hope that the that this EFT tapping is helping you out and you all found that whatever your angst is about online dating, I hope it went down for you all as well.
Yeah. So then what we would do is you do typically want to get down to at least below a 5, but 3 or less is best.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if it's not moving, it might just be because you have to get a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
So think of it like a specific incident or a specific aspect of the online dating that you hate, something like that. And I like to always point out to people that if you were at a party or something like that and there was, 100 people there and you met someone and you had a connection and you exchanged phone numbers and you walked away, you'd be feeling what?
Yeah, kind of good because you got that number. Yeah,
you'd be
ecstatic.
psyched. You'd be like, all right, out of 100 people, I met someone, right?
Yeah.
When you go online and you swipe left on 100 or 99 people,
oh yeah,
and you connect with one, how do you feel?
Oh, so upset because it's like, what the fuck?
Upset. Right?
Yeah.
It's just a mind switch.
Yeah.
It's just a mind switch. That's all it is. You swipe left on all those people and you start feeling depressed and bummed out and hopeless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet you go to the party with 100 people, you find one and you're psyched. So I actually I heard one of your other guests talking about this phenomenon, and I think it's really true. It's so important to check that mindset. But now I've just given you all a tool that after you swipe for a while and you start getting depressed, start tapping. Like, this is depressing. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so sick of this. I just swiped past all these people because you never want to be online when you're in a bad mood.
Right. Yeah.
In my book, I talk about like a red, green, yellow, red, yellow, green. I just said that weird system for online dating. And I say, like, keep it short, really, 15 minutes max, but 5 to 15 minutes. And always tune into your energy first and decide, like, am I feeling red? Am I feeling bummed out and lonely and pissed off? Don't go on, because guess what? Your reticular activating system is only going to pick up on the like ick people. And you might actually accidentally swipe by a good one.
Yeah.
Because you're just so ick, right? Like, do you ever just swipe so much that you're like, oh, I wasn't even seeing those last 5 people actually, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely guilty of doing that.
Yeah. So you don't want to go on when you're feeling red. And if you tune in and you're feeling green and you're like, I'm feeling good. Life is good. I mean, a partner would just be cherry on the top, but overall I'm feeling good. That's a perfect time to go on. Because you're in a green vibe and your reticular activating system will see more people.
Exactly.
And you'll be like, where'd all these people come from?
Right.
And if you're in a yellow mood, which is like, I'm not like bummed out, but I'm also not psyched. I'm just kind of in between.
Yeah.
Don't go online.
Okay.
And here's why. Our brains have a negativity bias. So we are 10 times more likely to focus on negative material than positive material. And so when you start to, swipe past too many people, guess what? You're going to turn really quickly from that yellow vibe into that from that yellow vibe into that red vibe, and you'll be feeling down and depressed before you know it. So if you're red, don't go on. If you're yellow, don't go on. Only go on when you're feeling that green high vibe like this. And if you're feeling really down, use tapping to clear that down feeling. Go out and do something after you tap away the negative feeling to bring your mood up. And you might even just meet someone when you're going out and doing something. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for like doing this with us. And teaching us how to, tap. Wow.
Yeah. And it's super easy to learn, y'all. You can go online, you can go on YouTube. There's a million videos. And look at this. I swear to God, when you shift your energy with tapping, you do, like, the animals love it.
Oh, yes. Because they can pick up on it on energy.
Oh, yeah, they can. Yeah, they can.
Harley's like, she
came over here right after we tapped.
Well?
She did. She was not here, y'all. And then she just came back. So, yeah, that's so funny. Yeah. So it's really easy to learn. It's easy to implement. And don't get caught up on the words. Just as long as you're feeling the feelings and you're tapping, it's going to work.
Sounds good. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Situaseans podcast is an open platform covering dating, relationships, mental and emotional life experiences. If you are looking to advertise your brand or product or would like to sponsor the show, send an email to situaseanspod@gmail.com. That's situaseanspod@gmail.com.
So in a heterosexual dynamic, especially, like in the bedroom, like what are some of the ways that women can, reclaim themselves and, be a goddess in the bedroom and, embrace their full, femininity, identity, and even like with men as well. How can they be a god in the bedroom and kind of claim themselves as well? And then, definitely want to include our friends in the LGBTQIA community. So how can we all kind of reclaim ourselves and feel that passion?
Right. Yeah, I know. This was a fun chapter to write because, and I will admit, obviously, I wrote it from the perspective of a heterosexual woman, which I am. And I did notice in dating that I saw two things happening a lot. One, I had my single friends were talking a lot about, well, I hope that, we keep the lights off because my body is so much older now than it was last time I was single, and I'm wrinkly, and he could be dating a younger woman, and I hope I'm giving the blowjobs correctly or whatever. Right? I hope I'm doing it right was like a theme, and then I could tell that they would be in their heads and they would be really anxious in the bedroom. And then I started talking to guys, single guys, and realizing that they're like, yeah, so many women are so uptight and anxious. And then we can tell if there's a certain point, especially with oral sex, where like they're just doing it to make us happy. And then we can't come. We can't orgasm because we're feeling all this pressure in our heads.
Yeah.
And so I was like, ooh, this is a problem I need to address in my book because that's really a big problem.
Yeah.
And I think what it comes down to is that everybody's in their heads
and
nobody's in their bodies.
Because sex is it's a mental thing.
Right. And, but if you're in your head too much, you're not experiencing pleasure, right?
Yeah.
So what I talk about in the book is about becoming mindful in the bedroom. And I think this applies to men, women, any kind of sexual orientation. It is become mindful. Notice your partner's caress on your skin. Don't think about what you're making for dinner.
Right.
Don't think about how long is this going to take, right? Just notice. So when you learn meditation, what you learn is thoughts will pop in and then you just let them go and go back to your breath or your mantra or whatever it is you're focusing on instead.
Yeah.
So what I say to people is when it comes to sex, when thoughts pop in your head, which they will, just let them go and go back to the feeling, the physical sensations that you're feeling.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you are no longer worrying, is my partner going to get off or not? Right. And they're not worrying about that either. Everybody's in just having more fun.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Right. And I've actually taught this mindfulness practice to a lot of women who never orgasmed before and suddenly were able to orgasm.
Wow.
Because they were so in their heads about it. And I've talked to a lot of guys who said, oh yeah, it's so great when a woman takes the pressure off. When I can tell that she just wants me to come, then I can't come.
Right.
But when I can tell that she's just receiving the pleasure that I'm giving her, then it's like great. And then I don't have any performance issues because I get turned on because I'm turning her on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It's a natural flow, is not pressure. Yes.
Right. And I always caveat this with if I think that I say 90% of men just want to make their woman happy and just want to give her pleasure. And if you're dating one of the rare ones that doesn't, run.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Run far and run fast. Okay.
Exactly.
So I do think that is the case. And I think that what I talk about in the book, in addition to just the mindfulness practice, is also for women being more in your feminine energy space. And it's a difficult conversation because I don't want to sound archaic and like, oh, you should let the man lead and all that. It's not really about that. It's just about being open to receiving.
Yeah.
And letting go. I think so many women these days are juggling so many balls in the air, and they're always having to be in control. And in our society, that masculine energy of control and production and, building, making, creating, like that masculine energy is rewarded. If you're not that way at work, you're not going to get promoted probably.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You have to be that way for my population. Like if you're a parent, you have to be that way. You have to be in that masculine energy, doing space a lot. We need to be in our feminine energy space for that rest and repair as well. And so a lot of times if you are being sort of super masculine in your relationship, you're kind of not giving your man any space to do for you.
Right.
And then I've heard guys say that they feel boxed out and they feel like, well, she doesn't really need me. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like, I'm not saying go out there, women, and like be needy and all that. It's not that at all. It's just sometimes let the control go.
Yeah.
And sometimes go with the flow and sometimes receive.
Yeah.
And I think this probably does apply to, any kind of sexual orientation because there's always somebody that needs to at some point be in their feminine. Even men at some point needs to, if your woman wants to give you a foot rub, let her give you a foot rub. Don't be like, oh no, you don't need to do that. Right. Right. So, and vice versa. And I do think that women in general have a hard time receiving because we're always used to doing for others and that we kind of are a little bit socialized to do that. Right. So that's my spiel on that. And then the last piece that I talk about in the book is the quote at the beginning of that chapter is something like Dr. Hendricks, again, he says, behind every communication issue is a sweaty 10-minute conversation you do not want to have.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That is so true.
And it is not any more true than in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. And so, but I think I love that it puts it in perspective because okay, the worst is that you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation for 10 minutes max and sometimes even less. And if you can just put that framework on it and maybe even do some tapping if you're really resistant or you're really worried about having that conversation and clear away the nerves with the tapping and then have that conversation because you do need to be vocal in the bedroom.
Absolutely. Communication is key and it is sexy.
Right? I know. I definitely, a lot of guys I dated, they're like, I love how directive you are. I'm like, great. Because I want this to feel good. So if you're in the wrong spot, I'm going to tell you to move over a little bit.
Exactly.
Right. So, and, I really have become much more mindful. And so when something is not feeling good, I'm going to notice it a lot faster because I'm not in my head thinking, about other things, I'm really in my body and I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right. Like, oh,
Yeah.
try this instead. Right. Yeah. And I want
Absolutely.
that from my partner. I want them to tell me what doesn't feel, but I don't want to be worried about, oh, am I, giving him a blowjob the way he likes it? It's like, tell me if it's not the way you like it. Right.
Right.
That's the whole key.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, we all get in, like you said, we all get in our heads, like especially like in that first time. But yeah, having that communication and being able to, say what it is that we prefer in bed, that helps so much. And that's, definitely going to be one of the things we're going to talk about with the listener submission as well, is that.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Because I know, like, even like, in my own, in my own, I guess, dynamic or whatever, it's like me, I love the female body. I love pleasing. And like, I want the woman to come before I do. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, women, like to your point earlier, women are givers, give, and it's just like, I think we need to normalize way more that, why isn't it like women should be able to receive more, you know what I mean? Because women give so fucking much of themselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and part of it is just a habit that you have to break. Maybe it really is. It's like when you're just so used to always, juggling all the balls in the air. It feels like, well, if I let one go, what's going to happen? And that feels scary. But this really just, you having maybe like trying to over control everything in your life, and that's impossible, and that's a recipe for burnout. So
exactly,
you have to learn to receive.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially just being able, to like, especially whenever women have to wear so many hats and just like life, like at least in the bedroom, women deserve to take a back seat for once.
Yeah, exactly.
So women, be good to yourselves. Like tell your man or your partner or whoever it is, like what you want,
Right, exactly. And then just lay back and relax and enjoy the ride.
Exactly. Be a goddess. So, lastly, what do you think are keys to a successful relationship?
So I do think communication is really huge.
Yeah.
And I do think having those uncomfortable conversations and speaking your voice is everything, really, because you're never going to know if your partner is capable of meeting your needs if you don't tell your partner your needs.
Right.
And I always say to people, just remember that your partner can't read your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that part.
Yeah. And a lot of things that we assume maybe they know or we believe that they should know. I hear that from people. Well, he should know. Well,
right. He can't.
Just stop. Just stop with the should.
Exactly. Can you repeat that one more time?
Stop with the should.
Right. You can't. Exactly. Like, you cannot read each other's minds.
No, you can't. I know there was somebody, Louise Hay used to say, if we could all replace the word should with could every time, like he could know, but and maybe he doesn't. And therefore, it is actually your responsibility to tell him. It is not his responsibility to figure that out.
Exactly.
To puzzle it out. That's not, if you're putting that on your partner, you're never going to be happy because it's just not human nature. It's not how it works.
Right. And I think a lot of people, because whenever they're having a new sexual experience with somebody, what I'm finding is that, especially when I'm hearing from like friends and stuff like that, sometimes they apply the same methods to like the next person. It's like everyone loves differently. Everyone has sex different. Everyone has different preferences. And it's like you can't apply whatever it was you did in bed with the previous partner to your current partner and future partners. Everybody's different.
Right, exactly. I was thinking that with the listener submission that we're going to talk about. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, so we have a listener submission. Are you ready to unpack this with me?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go ahead and get into that listener submission. All right, so this listener submission says, a woman, she wrote this in, and so this is about her and her partner. I'm gonna assume that it's a guy, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll go ahead and jump right on in. So this listener submission says, how do you tell a person you are dating what you like sexually without hurting their feelings? How do you refrain from hurting someone's feelings or confidence if they're bad at something? Example, kissing, foreplay, being too dominant or too submissive, etc. Sometimes you meet someone and the emotional chemistry is great, but you rather find that sexual chemistry needs adjustments. Any suggestions on approaching these types of conversations? Signed, hoping that both of us have fun. Wow. Yeah, this is a really good question because so many women have this exact same question, this exact same issue or concern. So yeah, how should a listener communicate that?
Well, I will tell you, I was thinking a lot about this because I struggle when sometimes my single friends bring this issue up with me because I think you just tell them, what's the problem? I don't get it.
Right. It's like easier said than done, right? Yeah.
Right. Easier said than done. And I'm a therapist. And from a young age, I was trained to be able to talk to people about sexuality issues and sexual dysfunction and all that kind of stuff. So I do realize I come from a different perspective than the average person. But I think
Us civilians.
Right, exactly. Lay people, we call it.
Right.
But I do think that it comes down to framing it in your mind. I do have to have this sweaty, uncomfortable conversation, and it doesn't have to be long.
Right.
But you have to have it. You can use the tapping to release the anxiety about it. And I think that it's also important. There's going to be a lot of things in your relationship that you're going to need to say to your partner that might hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
And you're going to need to say it anyway.
Absolutely.
And it's not just in the bedroom. So it's really a good skill to just learn and develop. And just like any muscle that we're trying to develop, you have to practice it over and over again to develop that skill, to get better at it. And so I think that this is one of those things where you can always lead with, one of the things we're taught as therapists is lead with some kind of statement of acceptance or validation before you make a request.
Okay. It's like affirmations before that concern. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Right. So if you're going to just ask someone to do something, you just flat out ask them, they can feel thrown, they can feel hurt, they can feel defensive, whatever it is. But if you start out with some kind of validation, like, I really love our time together. I love how you touch me here. I love how you touch me there. And I'm kind of feeling like I would also like it a little bit more if we could do this and such. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So, and be very careful when you do this technique of validating first and then request, you don't want to say but in between. And it's hard. People are trained. It took me a long time to train myself out of using the word but when you use but, you
kind of undo all that. Yeah.
You do. You invalidate everything you said before. So you want to just, say some kind of warm, validating, connecting kind of thing that is true, that is authentic. That's important. And then add in the request for the change.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I noticed with this submission was the use of her saying, if they're bad at blank. Mm-hmm. And I hear this all the time. I have lots of friends that say, oh, he was bad at kissing. And I question them always. I say, do you really think that someone is bad at kissing? Or do you think that two people don't connect in the same way or don't enjoy it in the same way? Because one person that you think might be a bad kisser might be a great kisser for another person.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think that there's any like standardly like bad at kissing thing. I just think it's like a subjective experience.
Right. Yeah. It's like your ew can be somebody's ooh.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, for sure. And so you have to have those conversations. You have to know that, okay, I'm going to have this uncomfortable conversation. I'm going to tap away my nerves and I am going, and it's not going to last that long. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see. And sometimes you might have to have it repeatedly. You might have to bring it up more than once.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your partner might get carried away and forget, like I know my partner likes like kissing my ear and tongue in the ear and all that. And that's not good to me. So
I get so ticklish behind my ear.
Yeah. I don't care for that. So I had to bring it up and then I had to bring it up a second time, and it was like, oh, right. So, right. I mean, that's just human nature and that's going to happen to us too. And
absolutely.
And the other thing is we just have to be really careful about how much we take things personally. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this woman's very sensitive to her partner's needs, and that's great. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to say about the submission is the fact that she was saying the emotional connection's there, but the physical not yet. So the physical connection can and will grow.
Yeah.
And I would never tell someone to stay in a relationship where they don't have physical chemistry, because I think you can have all the things and that's important. And yet, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater too soon.
Yeah.
Right? Because it really can grow. And so you just have to give it some time. If you've been together a few months, it's really not growing, or you're really a big mismatch, like maybe they have a really high sex drive and you don't, that could be a problem.
Right.
That probably won't get better in time. So you do want to be cognizant of that stuff, but at the same time, you want to allow for some growth. And also you're just going to see, are they flexible? Are they open to, working with me on these issues? And that's really important in a relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I think, even with this listener submission, they never stated like how long they've been going at it. But it's like, I feel like, like to your point, over time is going to get better because no one's first sexual experience with somebody else or whatever is going to always be fireworks the first time,
Exactly.
It's a varied experience.
Right. Exactly. And you really do have to speak your truth about it.
Mm-hmm.
You really do have to get used to that uncomfortable conversation, because otherwise you're going to be dissatisfied in the long run and the relationship will end up falling apart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so definitely be able to openly communicate that, be able to openly confirm that. Yeah, tap.
Tap on the nerves.
Yeah. And for you actors out there, like us fellow actors in improvisation of people, yes, and you're like, I like how you did this. And
yeah, that's great. That's a great example.
Awesome. Well, to the listener that submitted this, thank you so much. I think this is definitely a question that so many people have. I'm glad you asked it. This is a great question. And I'm so glad that you were able to kind of provide so much insight. Thank you for that, Allison.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so if you all want to submit your stories, go to situationspodcast.com/submit. And if you want to submit an ick, if you're on a date and some guy or some, girl or whoever is, said or did something or sent like an unsolicited like pic or whatever, just send your submission, not the pic.
Yeah, not that.
Right? So send that experience to situationspodcast.com/ick, ICK. It's all anonymous. I won't know who submitted what. It's just a form to just ask for whatever your submission is.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of ick out there.
Oh, yes. So this first one says, to me, relaxation is rewatching Sex and the City for the 17th time. Is this Hinge, green flag, or unhinged, red flag, deal breaker? Someone's watching Sex and the City for the 17th time.
Yeah. So, I think it's sort of obviously more of a red flag, right?
Yeah.
And what I would say about it, though, what I found really fascinating about it is, first of all, who has that much time on their hands but to watch over and over? But to me, I think what stood out to me about that is there is something that this person is getting from watching Sex and the City. There's some need that is being soothed from that show, which tells me that there's something unhealed that she's continuing to try to get from the show.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So
never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I'm gonna say this is. I kind of want to say unhinged, but I get it. I'll say halfway, half hinged, half unhinged. Mm-hmm. All right, this second one says, a life goal of mine is to love you so hard. Hinge or unhinged?
Okay, so to me, again, I'm kind of leaning towards unhinged.
What?
I know a lot of people would argue with me on that. So here's the thing. I don't think it's necessarily unhinged that you put it up there, but what it tells me, and this is definitely from my therapist's perspective, it screams anxious attachment.
Ooh, yeah.
It screams, please pick me. Right? So there's a little bit of a feeling of pick me because I'm going to be sort of codependent and I'm going to love you so hard. Because it's a life goal of mine too. Like that's your life goal.
Right. It's like nothing else, like no other dreams, aspirations.
Right. Or that's like the main thing you're thinking about. And to me, it just felt a little bit like I want to try to get you to like me. And so I'm going to say that I'm going to love you so hard.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
Now, I will say I did run these by my boyfriend last night and he was like, no, that's totally a green flag. That's a good thing. And that's a this and that. So, but to me, I would go out with that person, but just proceed with caution and notice, do they seem a little codependent? Do they seem like they're going to really, like, I'm going to love you so hard, I'm not even going to love myself. That would be a problem, right?
Mm-hmm, so. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I feel like if you're doing it just to be cute or whatever, you just want to make a interesting prompt, whatever, just to get a response.
For sure.
I feel like that's hinged. But if it's like, this is your life goal, then that's unhinged as fuck.
Yes. I would agree.
All right. So the last one says, you should not go out with me if you aren't into courting a woman. No, I do not want to hang out at your place. Hinge or unhinged?
Okay, so this one, I felt pretty okay with this one.
Okay, yeah, because like she's stating her boundaries.
She's stating her boundaries, and I think that there is a tendency in the dating world now to kind of be lazy and just say like, come on over as soon as possible, right?
Right.
So I feel like she was kind of saying that you're going to have to work a little bit, right? And we're not just going to fall into this lazy, like, crashing at each other's places thing. And I feel okay with that. The only thing I didn't love about that response is that she had a little rolling eye emoji.
Oh, yes.
At the end.
Yeah, there was a rolling eye emoji. Forgot to call that out.
Women, do not put rolling eye emojis on your dating profile, okay? Because what that conveys to me is that she has some bitterness.
Right.
And she's putting the bitterness out there on her dating profile.
Yeah. And is giving, you should already know this, y'all.
Yeah, exactly. So I do feel like there's a little bit of there's some work that she needs to do on her own stuff.
Absolutely.
And maybe her own like burnout around dating, that because she's like putting it out there. And so there's not a problem with having that. I get it. And I've been there. I've felt that before. But the problem is like putting it out there means you're leaking it. You're not containing your own stuff and you're not sort of dealing with your own emotions. And so that was the rolling eye felt a little unhinged, but for the most part, I would say hinged. I have literally said to guys I've dated, like, no, you need to court me for a little while. And that doesn't mean money necessarily. I think some people take that to mean money, but it doesn't. It's like, ask me to go for a walk on the beach. Like but be a gentleman and get to know me before we're just Netflixing and chilling. And,
exactly.
Right? So, yeah.
Date with intention, men.
Yes.
Do better.
And women, demand it. Have your boundaries. Not demand, that's a strong word, but, just know that you're worth that. Know that you're worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, thank you so much for the listeners that submitted all of those hinged and unhinged prompts and the listener submission. Love it. Allison, thank you so much for helping me unpack that.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah, so much fun. And I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. Can you please share with our listeners, where they can find you, how they can connect with you, the websites, all that stuff, where we can find your book? Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So my book, of course, is on Amazon, and my website is inspiredlifetapping.com, and you can go there to learn how to tap. You can get a copy of my book from there. You can follow me on Inspired Life Tapping at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the things.
Yes.
And I have some tapping videos and instructions there too.
Wonderful. Thank you. And if you're watching on YouTube, you will see all of that information pop up on the screen. You'll see her socials there and everything. You just saw it all pop up. So yeah. And if you're listening as well, you can find all the links in the show notes. So it'll be right there for you to get in contact with Allison and start the work on yourselves.
Yeah. Because now you have an awesome tool to make it happen faster.
Exactly. Are there any last words of wisdom that you want to share with our guests?
I just want to say that especially because I know a lot of your listeners are younger, just relax.
Yeah.
You know, just don't get so tied up in it. Don't go out dating like I got to find the one, because the more relaxed you are and the more you're just enjoying your life, the more likely you are to draw in the exact right person for you anyway.
Ooh, yes. I like that. Yes. I love that.
Have faith. Your person is coming.
Yes, indeed. Well, there are 3 ways that you all can submit to the show. The first way, again, situationspodcast.com/submit. The second way, call the hotline, 312-586-2664. Leave a voicemail submission. So it's an automated hotline. You don't have to worry about me picking up or whatever. Like, just submit your voicemail submission there. And the last way is situationspod@gmail.com. And yeah, we are everywhere. Again, rate and review. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, all that good shit. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're on a boat, a plane, a train, hey, even if you're Jimmy from, Alice's childhood, you can take Situations Podcast with you wherever you go. You like that, right?
I did. That was, wow, you pulled that out from way back.
Yes. Take this podcast with you wherever you go. And yes, I will see you all back here for the next episode in a couple of weeks. Woo!